All right, so get ready because today we're diving into a crime novel that really stayed with me. Acid Yellow by Dominic Piper. It's a it's a book that'll keep you guessing until the very end, but we're not going to give away any major spoilers. Think more like a book club preview. Just enough to pique your interest.
Oh, I like that a book club preview. Crime fiction is a genre I always enjoy, especially when it plays with your expectations and makes you think.
Let me tell you,
Mhm.
Acid Yellow does exactly that. The premise itself is a real hook. We've got Kiaraa Jeong. She's this world-famous South Korean classical pianist,
Yeah.
super talented, living the glamorous life. Oh, and she's also openly bisexual.
Okay. Already interesting.
But, tragically, she's kidnapped and murdered in London. Her sister Micha hires a private investigator, Daniel Beckett, to find out the truth about what happened.
So a classic whodunit setup.
Yeah, except there's a twist. We know who the killer is from the very beginning.
Whoa, hold on. So it's not about figuring out who did it. It's
Right.
more about why they did it. That's a really interesting way to approach the genre.
Exactly. And that's what makes this book so compelling. It shifts the focus to the characters, their motivations, and how their lives intersect.
I'm intrigued already. Tell me more about these characters.
Well, like I said, Kiara is a world-famous pianist.
Yeah.
But she's also navigating what it means to be a Korean woman in Western society and openly embracing her bisexuality. It makes you think about the pressures she might have faced and how that all ties into the events that unfold.
Yeah, definitely. It adds layers to her character and makes you question whether her identity played a role in her fate.
And then there's Mika, Kiara's sister. She's determined to uncover the truth behind her sister's death. She's driven, but also vulnerable, especially since she's pregnant during all of this.
Oh, wow. So there's this added layer of urgency and protectiveness. It's not just about revenge, it's about protecting a new life, a legacy.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about Daniel Beckett, the private investigator. He's witty, observant, and let's just say his love life gets a little messy, which ends up intertwining with the case in some unexpected ways.
Sounds like there's a lot going on. I like it when authors play with those classic detective tropes, but give them a modern twist. It sounds like Daniel is more than just the typical brooding loner.
Exactly. And those personal entanglements really add to the tension and keep you guessing. Plus, Preeper throws in all these red herrings and twists. Like, for example, there's this whole thing about the ransom drop-off. The location, the specific van involved, it all seems completely illogical at first.
Ah, the classic misdirection. I love when authors do that. It makes you question everything you think you know.
Oh, there are plenty of moments like that in Acid Yellow.
Yeah.
And then on top of all the mystery and suspense, Piper weaves in these bigger themes about the impact of fame and public scrutiny, especially for someone like Kiara coming from a more conservative culture. It makes you think about the pressure to maintain a certain image and the hidden costs of success.
That's such a relevant theme, especially today with social media and celebrity culture constantly in our faces. You start to wonder about the people we admire from afar and what might be going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's also this exploration of family relationships, the depths of grief, and how far we'll go to protect the people we love. Micah's determination is both admirable and heartbreaking. It raises all these questions about loyalty, morality, and what's considered acceptable when it comes to avenging a loved one.
It's not just a simple whodunit. It's a story that delves into those ethical gray areas, forcing you to think about right and wrong in a whole new way. And that's what makes it so compelling. It's the human drama that unfolds amidst all the chaos.
Right. And Piper does an incredible job of creating these complex characters you can't help but be invested in, even when their actions make you question their motives.
Yeah.
To give you a taste of his writing, I thought I'd share a short excerpt from the beginning. It's the scene where Daniel first meets Susanna, the lawyer who recommends him to Micah. You can already sense the sparks flying between them.
Oh, I always love those first encounters in crime novels. You can often tell which relationships will play a bigger role as the story unfolds.
Okay, here it goes. Susanna regarded him with a mixture of amusement and appraisal. Her eyes, the color of aged whiskey, seemed to hold 1,000 stories, each one more intriguing than the last. So, she purred. You're the man who solves the impossible.
Whoa. That description of Susanna eyes the color of aged whiskey. It's so vivid, you instantly get a sense of her character.
And Daniel, right from that brief exchange, you can tell he's up for the challenge. There's this playful energy, a hint of flirtation. You're left wondering what role Susanna will play in the bigger picture.
It's like Piper is subtly hinting at the complexities of their relationship right from the start. There's an underlying tension that makes you want to know more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just a glimpse into the web of relationships and secrets that Piper weaves throughout Acid Yellow. But we've only just scratched the surface. There's still so much more to uncover, like those intriguing photographs you mentioned earlier.
Oh, right, the boudoir and bondage style ones.
Yeah.
But I forget. I'm dying to know how those connect to everything else. Who took them? Who were they meant for? And why are some of them missing?
All great questions. And trust me, the answers are far more complicated than you might imagine. But we'll have to save those reveals for those who actually read the book.
You're killing me with the suspense. But okay, I'll respect the no spoilers rule.
You won't regret it. Acid Yellow is one of those books that stays with you long after you finish it. It's a wild ride.
I'm already adding it to my reading list. From the way you've described it, it sounds like Acid Yellow is more than just a crime novel. It's a psychological thriller, a social commentary, and a character study all in one.
You got it. It's a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat while also making you think about some pretty big questions. And that's what we love about a good book, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what else Piper has in store for us. This is just the beginning. So before we got caught up talking about Susanna and those whiskey-colored eyes, you mentioned some photos of Kiaraa taken in a pretty provocative style.
Right, those photos.
Yeah.
They definitely add another layer to this whole story. There is a lot of questions, especially about the women in Kiara's life.
Well, we know Kiaraa was openly bisexual. Was she seeing anyone at the time of her death?
Yeah, she was dating this woman named Odette Fournier. But their relationship was complicated, to say the least. Odette was actually married.
Oh, wow. A love triangle.
Exactly. And it gets even more tangled because Odette's husband, Matteo, he worked for this publishing house with some shady financial dealings going on.
Okay, so we've got a love triangle and a possible financial motive. This is getting good. What about those missing photos? Any connection to Odette?
At first, that's what it seemed like, but Odette denied ever receiving them. Then, of course, there's Puck, the photographer who took the pictures. He describes his work as artistic, elegant taboo. So you can imagine the kind of atmosphere he created during those photo shoots.
It's interesting how those details give us a glimpse into Kiara's life beyond her public persona. It adds depth to her character and makes you wonder if those hidden aspects of her life somehow played a role in her death.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Was someone jealous of her? Did they feel threatened by her freedom and how she expressed herself? It raises a lot of questions about societal norms, personal boundaries, and the consequences of challenging those norms.
Especially for someone like Kiaraa, who is already navigating different cultural identities, Korean, Western, bisexual, she was constantly pushing against expectations.
Right, and as Daniel investigates, he starts to uncover these inconsistencies, these little details that don't quite add up. Like, remember how the police seemed almost dismissive about those details regarding the van used for the ransom drop-off? Well, that seemingly unimportant detail ends up being a major turning point in the case. It reveals a pretty disturbing truth about one of the detectives involved.
You mean Detective Sergeant Kinnaird. You mentioned earlier that there was something off about him.
Yeah, Kinnaird. He's one of those characters who just sets off alarm bells from the start. He's a little too eager to help, a little too interested in Kiara's personal life. And as Daniel digs deeper, he uncovers some unsettling stuff about Kinnaird's past. Accusations of assault, a pattern of manipulating evidence, even a connection to this controversial right-wing politician, Billy Carmichael.
Okay, hold on. We've got a corrupt cop, a shady politician, and a murdered pianist. This is starting to sound like a classic noir thriller, but knowing Dominic Piper, there's got to be more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Billy Carmichael is a character you won't soon forget. He's an author whose books are filled with some pretty extreme views, particularly towards women. And it turns out he had a very specific and very public reason to dislike Kiaraa.
So we're starting to see a web of connections, potential motives emerging. But how does a right-wing politician tie into the world of a classical pianist?
Well, let's just say Kiaraa wasn't afraid to speak her mind, even if it meant challenging powerful figures like Carmichael. And her boldness may have had some serious repercussions.
It's like Piper is showing us how these different worlds, politics, music, law enforcement, can collide in unexpected and often dangerous ways.
Exactly. And as the investigation progresses, it becomes clear that everyone involved has secrets. And those secrets are intertwined in ways that are both fascinating and terrifying.
It makes you wonder, right? How well do we really know the people around us? What lengths will they go to protect their reputations, their beliefs, their darkest desires?
Those are some of the big questions that Acid Yellow makes you grapple with. It's not just about solving a crime. It's about understanding the complexities of human nature, the masks we wear, and the hidden motivations that drive us.
I love when crime fiction goes beyond the surface level and explores those deeper themes. It makes for a much richer reading experience.
For sure. And speaking of rich experiences, remember those shady financial dealings we talked about earlier? Well, it turns out they're connected to a rather shocking source. A source that links several characters together in a way you probably won't see coming.
You're killing me. I'm already picturing myself frantically flipping through the pages trying to figure it all out.
I know the feeling, but I think we should resist that urge and save the big reveals for those who actually pick up the book.
Fine, you win. No spoilers, but I'm definitely adding this to my reading list. From what you've said, it sounds like Acid Yellow is so much more than just your average crime novel.
It really is. It's one of those books that stays with you long after you've finished it, and the way Piper brings everything together in the finale is both satisfying and thought-provoking. Okay, so we're back, and it's time to finally unravel all the threads of this twisted story, Acid Yellow, and believe me, the way Dominic Piper brings everything together is both brilliant and kind of unsettling.
You mentioned earlier that those shady financial dealings were connected to a pretty shocking source. I'm on the edge of my seat here. Tell me, how does it all fit in?
Well, remember Billy Carmichael, that right-wing politician with those strong opinions? Remember, turns out his party was secretly funneling money to Matteo Fournier's publishing house.
Whoa, hold on a sec. That's a pretty big connection. What was their motive? What were they trying to achieve?
It's all part of Carmichael's master plan. You see, he doesn't just consider himself a politician. He's on a mission, a cultural crusade to purify society from what he considers moral decay. And Kiaraa, with her outspoken nature and her unconventional lifestyle, she represented everything he hated.
So basically, she became this target for his twisted ideology, but I still don't see where Detective Kinnaird fits into all of this.
Kinnaird, he was Carmichael's enforcer. Basically someone who shared his warped worldview and was more than willing to abuse his power within the police force to help Carmichael's agenda.
That's chilling. It's scary how Piper shows us how these seemingly separate things, like political ambition, personal prejudice, and this lust for power, how they can all come together and create a truly dangerous force.
Right. And what makes Acid Yellow so effective is that Piper doesn't shy away from exploring the psychology of these characters. Like, Kinnaird is a fascinating study in obsession and control. His desire for Kiaraa goes way beyond just physical attraction. It's this deep-seated need to dominate and control.
Yeah. The way Piper portrays that descent into madness, it's both captivating and terrifying. You see how Kinnaird's worldview justifies his actions in his mind? He convinces himself that he's not the bad guy. He sees himself as some kind of savior, cleansing the world of what he considers impurity.
It's a brilliant but really disturbing look at the dark side of human nature and the climax of the story. The confrontation between Daniel and those responsible for Kiara's death. It's intense, a masterclass in suspense and psychological tension.
You've really painted a vivid picture here without giving anything away. What would you say makes this book so thought-provoking? What's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it's that lingering feeling of unease. You know, the realization that even though justice is served, there's still this deeper darkness that remains. Yellow forces you to confront some uncomfortable truths about the world we live in, the subtle ways that prejudice and power can silence and control. It reminds us that the monsters we fear aren't always hiding in the shadows. Sometimes they're right there in plain sight, disguised as respectable figures of authority.
That's powerful. And it really speaks to the power of crime fiction to not just entertain, but to hold up a mirror to society, to show us the cracks in our systems and challenge us to face the darkness within ourselves.
Well said. So if anyone out there is looking for a crime novel that will keep you guessing until the very end, while also making you think about some bigger issues, Acid Yellow is the book for you.
It's a story that will stick with you long after you've finished reading. It makes you question your assumptions, your beliefs, and maybe even your own role in the systems of power and prejudice that the book explores.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Acid Yellow. We hope you enjoyed it and that we've inspired you to check out the book for yourselves. Happy reading, everyone!